Je vais commencer à enregistrer la réunion, si ça ne vous gêne pas. Voilà.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I go ahead with the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I apologize. My French is not excellent, so I will not be able to do this presentation in French. I want to believe that most of the participants are bilingual, so please forgive me. I want to say a big thank you to CALP for this opportunity to do this presentation. I have just a few slides, so I'm not going to take your time. And before I do the presentation, I want to acknowledge Jose, who is the cash working group technical co-lead with me in Nigeria. I'm Ayo Ajayi. I work for OCHA. I'm the cash working group co-lead. I focus on strategic. Come to the next slide. The next slide, please. Abdullahi, please, can you move to the next slide? Okay. Still need to go further. Okay, perfect. So before going into the presentation proper, I think it would be appropriate for me to just quickly give you an idea of the number of partners we have implementing cash and virtual assistance in Nigeria. As at 2020, we have 39 partners implementing CVA across 38 out of 61 local government areas in the Bay State. What I mean by Bay State is Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. There are 3 main states in Nigeria where the humanitarian partners are currently providing humanitarian assistance. And out of the 3 states, we have 61 local government areas. And out of the 61 local government areas, 39 partners, as of 2020, implemented CVA in 38 LGAs. It is important for me to mention that food security sector has the highest portfolio. As at this period that I'm reporting, they supported 2.4 million individuals. And out of the 2.4 million individuals, about 1.1 million plus received assistance through CVA, which represented about 45% of the total portfolio. It's also important for me to mention that we have other sectors who implemented CVA during this reporting period. As you can see, we have early recovery, livelihood, shelter, NFIs, education, protection, WASH, and GBV. The total portfolio of all these sectors came to 30% of the overall CVA in the Bay State. The next slide. The next slide. Okay, now, Nigeria, just like other countries, oh, sorry, go back. Back. Okay, thank you. So, Nigeria was equally affected by COVID, No, please go back to, oh, yeah, thank you. It's okay. You can stop here. So Nigeria was equally affected by COVID. And just like what happened in other countries, the government of Nigeria imposed restrictions on movement and activities during at the peak of COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. So what we did immediately as the cash working group in Nigeria was to organize a visual meeting to review the possible impact of COVID-19 on cash and voucher assistance in our 3 target states. So I will just quickly highlight the key outcomes of the meeting. As you can see on the slide, we decided that we are going to share relevant documents from CAP on COVID-19. We agreed that we would explore alternative mechanisms for response, e.g., conversion from cash to vouchers or in-kind where is applicable. We also agreed to strengthen coordination and engage with the private sector and government and donors. We took a decision to streamline communication through the inter-sector working group to the government committee on COVID-19. The government set up a COVID-19 committee that was in charge of activities and other related matters. So instead of having different communication channels, we decided in the cash working group to mainstream our communication through the ISCG, Intersector Working Group. Then we also explore remote market monitoring and joint information sharing. I will give you more details on all this. Then we developed a COVID-19 CVA risk matrix. And lastly, we decided to set up a tax team to provide guidance. The next slide, please. Please confirm if you can hear me, because I saw a message now concerning the internet. Please, can the participants confirm that you can hear me? Okay, Jennifer, okay, perfect. Okay, thank you very much. So I will just briefly present to you how we were able to carry out, or key actions we implemented to carry out the outcomes of the meeting that I mentioned in the earlier slide. Like I said, we set up a tax team. The tax team comprised of INGOs, representatives of INGOs, national NGOs, and the UN. And the TOR, the terms of reference of the tax team, was to help to come up with common positions and guidelines on CVA intervention in the context of COVID-19. The tax team was also responsible for developing advocacy messages to the HCT, government, and donors. In terms of the CVA risk matrix for COVID-19, we actually adopted the risk matrix that was developed by South Sudan in the wake of the COVID-19. The former technical coordinator for Cash Working Group in Nigeria is now the technical coordinator for South Sudan. So we exchanged information and ideas on how they were dealing with the situation. So they shared with us their risk matrix, which we adapted, and the risk matrix helped us to analyze risks that could, in relation to how we can develop preparedness and contingency plans to minimize the impact of different COVID-induced risks on CVA in the base state. Unfortunately, I will share the matrix with you, I think for future reference. It looked at the different program cycle in cash programming. So the partners were able to identify the likely risk in line with each program, the element in the program cycle. And we were able to do, based on the responses from the partners, we were able to come up with an analysis, and we came up with mitigation measures per the key elements in the program cycle. Then we also, we did joint, the food security, like I said in my first slide, has very strong CVA components. They have the highest number of partners, and they have very strong tools. So we decided to go into joint price and market monitoring with food security. Particularly, we brought in non-food items. They were using their tools basically for food items, but based on our collaboration with the food security, they accepted to include non-food items in the monitoring tool, and they were able to give us updates on weekly basis. Then, like I said, we shared a lot of, CAP was very informative, very useful throughout the peak of COVID-19. There were a lot of documents coming out from CAP, and we ensured that all the documents were shared with all the members of the cash working group. The next slide. Okay, then you recall that during that period, the intersector working group was asked or tasked to develop an addendum to the 2020 HRP. So the cash coordinators worked with the sector coordinators to integrate CVA into the COVID-19 response plan.
We lost you, Ayo. Ayo, still with us? Jose, it seems.
Hello? Hello, Hamadu. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, seems Ayo is having some technical difficulties. I'll proceed until he's able to come back. Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me?
You're back, Ayo. You're back.
Oh,
thank you.
I'm sorry. I think the internet. Okay, so as I was saying, we supported the cash working group coordinators, worked closely with the sector coordinators to ensure that CVA was integrated into the COVID-19 response plan. We also supported them to develop appropriate CVA indicators so that they can transparently report COVID-related CVA activities in the sector 5Ws. Then we also worked with the partners to track activities and policies and guidelines on CVA on COVID-19. Our partners, of course, in their different organizations develop policies and guidelines. We try to take stock of all the activities and policies for learning. Then we also develop advocacy messages, which we shared with the ISWG, OACT, the humanitarian country team, the government. The advocacy generally was to strengthen the operating environment for CVA in the context of COVID-19. So the key areas we focused on was on market, financial service provider, security, insurance of passes. I will come to talk about that. Then how we can use the government social protection mechanism to deliver assistance to the affected population. The next slide, please. Okay, now this is an important component that I would like to just spend a little time, but I won't waste your time. Like I said at the beginning, that the state government, the federal and state government imposed restriction on movement at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the government was kind enough to open up the space for humanitarian partners to implement critical life-saving humanitarian activities. And to be able to do this, they came up with an idea to issue passes and pass stickers to humanitarian organizations that are delivering core life-saving activities. And before, let me also mention that the UN in Nigeria activated business continuity plan. We also activated our, what's it called now? I'm very sorry, it escaped my memory, but pardon me. So we activated our business continuity plan, and we also, I'm sorry, anyway, but all partners were expected to prioritize critical life-saving activities. And those were the ones that the government were issuing passes and car stickers to ease movement. So we, like I said, that we had to work with the intersector working group. We mainstreamed our communication through the intersector working group. So we were able to identify partners who were implementing CVA, and I'm happy to inform you that all of them were issued passes and stickers to be able to continue with the response. And the cash coordinators played a significant role. We were on standby to troubleshoot. There were still cases of some of our partners that were issue passes and the stickers, and they were still they were stopped or prevented from implementing the activities by the military or by the security. So we were on standby helping to deal with such issues. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, this is my last slide quickly. I will just share with you the challenges and lessons we learned from this experience. One, in terms of challenges, we had late distribution of cash and voucher assistance. You know, at the beginning, when there was total lockdown, a lot of our partners could not implement their CVA programs. Then we had some of our partners had some agreement with some logistics companies who used to convey items for voucher assistance, particularly like the non-food items, both food and non-food items. So because of the total lockdown, there was delay in movement of logistics. The vehicles could not move to the locations where the partners were supposed to exchange their vouchers for the items they needed. Then the lockdown resulted in temporary suspension of CVA. I think I've mentioned that. Then distribution centers had to practice social distancing, although this was not much of a challenge, but it took a while for partners to come up with those practices in line with the protocol established by the government. So within the period that they had to come up with this to comply with the protocol, you know, it also in a way affected the period for distribution, for them to implement their CVA activities. And this also related to in maintaining hygiene. Of course, you know, these were not part of what the partners were doing before, so they had to get used to maintaining and complying with the government protocol on COVID-19. So I'll quickly go to the lessons learned. The first lesson learned is, I think it's important for us to have strong preparedness plans in place. Prior to the COVID, we had mapped financial service providers. In 2000 and at the beginning of 2019, we mapped the financial service provider landscape in Nigeria. So when the lockdown came, it was easier for us because already we have an idea in terms of the different financial service providers who could help us during the period. Then strong existing collaboration. The existing relationship we have with CAP really helped us a lot. You know, CAP has a lot, I mean, it's rich in resources. So the information, the document, the articles coming from CAP helped us to, the review of those documents helped us to adapt and also to use some of the valuable resources to enrich the work the work we do. I mean, how we adapted to the situation created by COVID-19. Then we also leverage on resources, like I mentioned during my presentation, that we collaborated, the cash working group collaborated with Food Security to conduct remote price monitoring. I think it is important for us to identify resources outside of the cash working group and look for opportunities to leverage on them when we have a similar situation in the future. Then in terms of promoting humanitarian social protection linkage, WFP, for example, was able to use the government social protection mechanism to transfer, I mean, to provide assistance through CVA to their partners. So very important lesson is with donors. Most of the donors allow to view their budget and to reuse funding to meet gaps that were created by COVID-19. And lastly, mainstream channel of communication through the ICG. I think this is an important lesson for us because we use collective approach. Instead of having different streams of communication channel with the government, which could confuse the government, we decided to mainstream our communication through the intersector working group, and it worked very well. So I will recommend that in future, it will be good for us to look at collective approach to deal with issues instead of having multiplicity of communication channels. And thank you very much. This is quickly my presentation. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ayo, for this talk taking from Nigeria. So I don't know if you have any question, please raise your hand or leave comments in the chat box. Up to you. Yeah, there is a question for you. Are you in the chat box?
Okay, please, can you read it out?
Is the mapping of disaggregated modalities followed by each cluster through existing 4W metrics as recommended by Global Intercluster? Did you aware about that? Is it possible to share the COVID-19 matrix risk?
Yes. Yes, I'm happy to share the matrix risk. I will share it. I will use the chat box. I will share it with you. Please, there is some, sorry, quickly, there is an aspect of the metrics which I think I should also mention. I'm sorry, I missed it. You know, after the partners had responded to us, we have very good, the cash working group has very good working relationship with most of the donors in Nigeria. And for your information, Nigeria is one of the pilot countries for the CDA, the Common Donor Approach for cash programming. So the donors used to invite the cash coordinators from time to time to provide update to them on the state of CVA. And with that, we've been able to develop a strong relationship with them. Then apart from the joint meeting or presentation we do to the donors, we also have bilateral meetings with them. So at some point, we made a request to DFID, now known as FCDO, to provide technical support to the cash working group to analyze the responses from the partners. So the detailed space is one of the agencies providing support to FCDO. So they asked a consultant in space to support the cash working group to do the analysis of the response, which they did, and they shared the report with us. I'm also happy to share the report of the analysis with you. In terms of the 4Ws metrics, in Nigeria, all the sectors have cash-friendly 5W. We call it 5Ws here. So we work with them closely to ensure that all the key elements that we help them to report transparently the use or the scale up of cash and voucher assistance is integrated into their 5Ws. So throughout this, so we didn't have challenges with them reporting the CVA-related COVID-19 activities using their 5Ws because the 5Ws were already cash-friendly. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, sorry, the question is from Christoph from ECHO. I don't know, Christoph, if you are fine with the answer.
Yes, sorry, partially, because my preoccupation is about to have a global overview of all the modality that has been used on the field. And so one of the recent recommendation of the interglobal cluster is to push each cluster to follow all the modality in order to have a big overview of the in-kind, the voucher, the cash, as a disaggregated manner, so we can follow year by year the evolution of each modality. Okay. So I'm not sure that the response was very. I've understood that there is a good relationship with the cluster, with the partners to track cash and voucher modality, but I'm not sure that you have a big overview of all the modality, and if it's possible to disaggregate cash and voucher, for example, and in voucher to distinguish electronic voucher versus paper voucher. Over.
Okay. Oh, thank you. I think I now understand your question. We've not done a good job, I must confess to you, in Nigeria in doing that level of disaggregation. One of the major challenges we have faced since 2019 to date as cash working group is the absence of IM support. OCHA used to support us from 2017 up to mid 2019. Unfortunately, due to OCHA is providing support to a wide range of partners, so they could not. In the past, we used to have a dedicated IM support from OCHA, and we were not enjoying that any longer. So we had to approach IMAP with support from USID. An IM capacity was seconded to support the cash working group. Unfortunately, the capacity was short-lived. So it's just now, let's say a month ago, that we are now having another IM officer has been assigned to work with the cash working group from IMAP with supervision from OCHA. to support us. But your point is valid, and I think it's something we need to look at. But like I said, the major challenge we have is the absence of IM that could help us to do that level of disaggregation. Thank you, and over to you.
Okay. Christophe?
Yes, thanks a lot. I think the challenge is not very about dedicated support about IOM, but the challenge is more on cluster level on my thoughts, because there is already an existing matrix of in the cluster, and the idea of the global interclusters is to really push each cluster to collect the information about the different modalities, and then it's more easy for the cash working group just to compile the different information coming from cluster. Over.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question from Louise. It's in the chat box. Ayo, would you have an idea on the volume of the cash transferred to the beneficiaries during the COVID-19 by sector in Dubai?
In the States. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, please, what's the question again, please?
Okay, the question is, would you have an idea on the volume of the cash transferred to the beneficiaries during the COVID-19 by sectors?
No, I don't have the information.
Okay. Another question from Natasha in the chat box. I understand the regulatory authority has recently changed rules related to SIM card registration, now mandating that to register a SIM you need a national ID. Is the cash working group on any advocacy statements or working with the government to find a solution for those population groups without ID card?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a valid question. Just yesterday, no, 2 days, yesterday, pardon me, just yesterday, we had a meeting with our core group to look at the challenges, which included the issue of the national ID that has just been, which is part of this question. So we are trying to come up with an advocacy message, or let me step back a bit. In 2019, the cash working group did a presentation to the HCT, and one of our asks to the HCT was to come every quarter to make a presentation and also to present to them the key challenges at every quarter with some advocacy messages. So that is one of the reasons why we had the meeting yesterday. And the issue of the ID came up in our meeting. So we had the initial meeting yesterday, and we plan to have a follow-up meeting that will help us to do a proper analysis of not just the ID, also other issues that we have experienced in the first quarter of the year, and we'll develop some advocacy messages around it to share with the HCT. We don't know how the government is going to respond, because the government is very critical about the ID. For your information, somebody like me, my bank account was blocked because of this. And as we speak, I've not been able to renew my international passport because I've not been able to present the ID. I don't have it. And the process of getting it is cumbersome. So I cannot even renew my international passport because of this. So it's a very naughty situation we find ourselves. We will look at how the HCT will be able to go around it. But I acknowledge your question. I agree with you. It's a big problem. I don't know what will be the response of the government dealing with it. But we have already set in motion the process to share our advocacy messages to the HCT. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Ayo. So we have another experience. Yeah, okay. So from Jennifer in the chat box, restriction linked to the registration to SIM card for humanitarian and social development transfers in DRC, shared in the chat box. So you can download the file. From Jennifer, we were able to work with the World Bank, who were able to use the leverage with the government central bank ahead of their investment. Another comment from, so I don't know who, you have not changed your name, it's still Galaxy S10. We have the same problem in car of national IDs required for mobile money. The national authorities used to allow beneficiary card issued by NGO for humanitarian assistance, but they stopped to do that now, which de facto stop mobile money in car. So it means that we have similar problem in some countries in the region. I don't know, Christophe, your hand is still raised. I don't know if you want to.
Sorry, it's an old one. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so this is from Stefan from IRC, Regional Cash Technical Advisor. Sorry, okay. Another comment from Amma. If I recall correctly, Nigeria government very soon required biometrics to be taken for SIM registration. With the first World Food Program transfer, the first financial service provider were registering beneficiary with photo and fingerprints. Just a note, okay. Thank you. Any other comment, question for Ayo before moving to the next presentation? No. Okay. So we will say thank you very much to Ayo and Jose for their presentation and the stock taking from Nigeria COVID-19 response. So now I will move on my presentation.
Hello, Abdullah. Please, can Christophe share with us the communication from ICG for our information so that we can also follow up with the sector coordinators in Nigeria?
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm coming. Donc, je ne sais pas si vous voyez l'écran. OK.
Oui.
OK. Merci beaucoup. Donc, la prochaine présentation, comme indiqué dans l'ordre du jour, c'est cette session pilote de la formation en ligne de notre module compétences de base en transfert monétaire pour le personnel programme. Alors, je vais d'abord commencer par contextualiser cette formation en ligne. Donc, comme nous le savons tous, la COVID-19 a complètement changé notre façon de travailler et elle nous a obligés à adopter de nouvelles méthodes de travail, notamment les formations, les soutiens techniques à distance, etc. Donc, ce qui a amené le CALP à automatiquement commencer à adapter, à réadapter ces matériels de formation pour pouvoir les mettre autant que possible à la disposition des acteurs humanitaires. Donc, et le deuxième aspect qu'il faut retenir aussi de ce contexte, ce module de formation compétences de base en transfert monétaire a été lancé depuis 2018. Donc, il est temps pour nous de le revoir. Donc, on va prendre aussi cette opportunité de développer ce modèle en ligne pour mettre à jour le contenu de ce même modèle. Donc, nous comptons en même temps apporter les mêmes modifications qu'on va apporter au niveau du matériel pour la formation en ligne et nous comptons apporter ces mêmes modifications pour le matériel face à face très bientôt. Alors, pour vous donner un aperçu de la formation, il s'agit d'une nouvelle formation en ligne innovante, donc de 12 semaines. Bon, pas 12 semaines chaque jour en salle, mais ça prend 12 semaines à peu près, et équivalent à la formation face à face, qui est de 5 jours. Donc, les apprenants doivent consacrer 3 heures par semaine, donc chaque semaine, c'est à peu près 3 heures. Ça va être nous allons le voir plus en détail, des webinaires, des consultations de ressources et des tâches à domicile à compléter. Et à la fin de ces 12 semaines, chaque participant va recevoir un certificat équivalent à cette formation face à face. Donc, ceux qui ont participé à la formation face à face et ceux qui ont participé à cette formation en ligne recevront le même certificat. L'idée ici, c'est de pouvoir, comme je l'avais dit, continuer à donner l'accès à nos ressources de formation aux acteurs, malgré cette situation de COVID-19. Mais au-delà, même s'ils se trouvent dans une situation où, par exemple, il y a l'insécurité et c'est difficile de déployer un formateur, donc on peut continuer toujours à développer autant que possible, à délivrer la formation. L'idée ici, c'est comme la formation face à face, c'est d'avoir une vingtaine de participants ensemble. Donc, ça, c'est en termes de gestion du groupe, du temps, etc., qu'on pense qu'il faut limiter le nombre de participants à 25. Donc, et ces 25-là qui seront sélectionnés, comme je l'avais dit, ils auront accès à ces ateliers animés, etc., etc. Alors, quelle est notre stratégie au niveau global pour cette formation-là à long terme? Donc, la première question, c'est qui est habilité à délivrer cette formation? Naturellement, c'est le personnel en charge du renforcement des capacités au niveau régional et au niveau global. Mais nous avons aussi des partenaires de formation qui peuvent aussi développer les capacités à l'interne pour pouvoir la délivrer. Et nous avons aussi naturellement les formateurs certifiés, mais pas tous les formateurs certifiés pour les formations face à face, mais les formateurs qui seront certifiés à délivrer ce format en ligne. Donc, même si on est formateur certifié, il faut nécessairement qu'on participe à une formation de formateur sur ce modèle en ligne avant de pouvoir délivrer le module. Alors, un autre aspect aussi à souligner ici, il s'agit d'un ensemble de compétences qui nécessitent différentes compétences de facilitation. Donc, ce n'est pas une formation en face à face. Donc, comme je l'avais dit, le fait d'être un formateur face à face ne donne pas naturellement droit à être un formateur pour cette formation en ligne. L'autre aspect aussi, d'ailleurs, comme la formation face à face, probablement ça nécessitera 2 animateurs. Donc, un animateur principal donc qui gère tout le processus. Aussi, il peut être aidé par un autre sur les aspects techniques ou bien sur la facilitation du groupe, dépendamment de comment ils vont se partager les tâches. Mais il y a tellement du travail à faire, on pense que ça nécessite d'avoir 2 formateurs. Alors, quelle est la structure de la formation? Donc, globalement, elle a 2 parties. Donc, il y a une partie qui est en ligne et disponible, accessible à tout le public à tout moment. Ce sont tous ces vidéos, des formations en ligne, des ressources qu'on peut consulter. Mais par contre, tout ce qui est atelier facilité par les 2 animateurs ou les travaux de groupe ou les évaluations, des forums de discussion entre les participants ne seront pas accessibles au public. Donc, il faut nécessairement joindre une cohorte. Donc, il y aura une sélection. Et puis, après la sélection, quand on va participer, là, on aura accès à cette partie. Bon, je vois qu'il y a une petite cookie payée pour y accéder. Donc, on ne prend plus les frais. Je vais corriger la slide après. Donc, ça sera bientôt, ce n'est pas encore. Donc, je vais tout à l'heure partir au niveau du processus pour le lancement de cette formation. Donc, le parcours d'apprentissage, comme je l'avais dit, c'est 12 semaines. Il y a 9 semaines. Ça, c'est pour tout ce qui est contenu en tant que tel, ce que le participant va faire. Et il y aura à peu près 3 semaines de pause pour permettre aux apprenants de se rattraper. Parce que celui qui a rattrapé et qui a raté une activité, donc on lui donne un temps pour rattraper, ainsi de suite. L'autre aspect aussi, c'est que, bon, comme pour pouvoir avoir le certificat, il y a 6 ateliers à participer qui sont facilités par les animateurs. Donc, il faut nécessairement compléter ces 6 ateliers en présentiel. On peut rater un, mais si on rate un, on peut avoir droit à un enregistrement qu'on peut suivre, mais au-delà de un, le participant ne peut pas avoir droit à un certificat. Alors, donc, comme vous le voyez, ce sont les mêmes 6 thèmes qu'il y a pour la formation face à face qui sont là et qu'on essaie de couvrir, mais cette fois-ci à distance. Donc, avec le même objectif d'apprentissage, pratiquement les mêmes exercices. Mais comme je l'avais dit, il y a eu des mises à jour qu'on a ajoutées au niveau de ce format en ligne qui a été pris en compte. Alors, le processus de lancement de la phase pilote ici en Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre, comme vous le voyez ici dans ce tableau, mais peut-être avant de discuter de ça, ça fait partie d'un processus au niveau global depuis qu'on a conçu ce format en ligne pour ce module. Donc, nous avons piloté la version anglaise au Moyen-Orient, Afrique du Nord. La phase pilote en anglais s'est achevée le mois précédent, le mois passé. Donc, nous comptons lancer ici en Afrique de l'Ouest, cette fois-ci, une version en français, donc de ce même format en ligne. Et là, nous comptons organiser au mois de mai un atelier de formation de formateurs. Donc, comme je l'avais dit, le fait d'être formateur certifié en face à face ne signifie pas automatiquement être formateur pour ce format en ligne. Donc, on va organiser une formation de formateurs au mois de mai, puis sélectionner une cohorte au niveau de la région Afrique de l'Ouest et délivrer la formation idéalement entre juin et juillet. Donc, les 12 semaines dont j'avais parlé donc, vont se répartir sur 3 mois. Donc, là, c'est un calendrier provisoire susceptible d'être modifié. Donc, mais de toutes les façons, à travers le cash working group régional et même les autres cash working group nationaux, vous serez informés de tout changement au niveau du calendrier. Donc, actuellement, nous avons sélectionné les participants à la formation de formateurs. Nous avons organisé la réunion d'orientation, comme vous l'avez vu, et nous comptons organiser au mois de mai, et si tout va bien, à partir du 10 mai, la formation de formateurs pour ceux qui ont été sélectionnés au mois de mars. Donc, puis après, nous verrons dans la pratique comment et quand est-ce qu'on va commencer la formation pilote ici en Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre. Un autre aspect pour terminer, pourquoi on fait focus région par région? Parce que comme vous le savez, c'est des formations en ligne. Si on ouvre les participants au niveau global, il peut y avoir des décalages horaires importants qui fait que c'est difficile souvent d'organiser des groupes de travail quand vous n'êtes pas dans le même horaire, par exemple. Et un autre aspect aussi, il y a aussi la contextualisation, les échanges techniques entre les différents participants, l'apprentissage par les pairs, etc. Donc, ça serait beaucoup plus bénéfique si les participants sont au pair dans le même contexte. Donc, c'est ça qui a fait que, bon, on pense que on peut lancer région par région. On est toujours en phase pilote, mais peut-être que plus tard, on verra si c'est possible d'ouvrir ça au niveau global, tout en sachant le défi qu'il y a en termes de différence de zones horaires qu'il peut y avoir si les participants ne sont pas dans la même région. Merci beaucoup. Des questions? Oui, Christophe?
Oui, merci, grand merci Abdoulaye pour cette présentation. Peut-être juste une question de précision et peut-être un commentaire. Donc, vous limitez le nombre de personnes, donc c'est 20 personnes maximum, mais ça veut dire que le calendrier de formation doit être accordé entre les 20 personnes sur les 3 heures par semaine. C'est-à-dire que vous avez déjà défini comment seront réparties ces 3 heures par semaine et tout le monde devra y être. Ce n'est pas chacun qui fait à son rythme. Ça, c'est la première question. Et la deuxième, c'est plutôt un peu une question recommandation. Vu que vous avez fait un pilote déjà en anglais, comment les gens ont évalué un peu ces 12 semaines? Parce que ça paraît très, très long, sachant que en général, les staffs doivent quand même aller faire des missions sur le terrain, etc. Le fait d'étaler ça sur une durée très, très grande, ça fait que dans les 20 personnes, on augmente le risque que les personnes soient en mission, parties, etc. Et est-ce qu'il n'aurait pas été peut-être préférable de faire cette formation plutôt je sais pas, plutôt en un mois? Est-ce que vous avez pu avoir un peu des feedbacks là-dessus et avoir tester différentes options ou des feedbacks? Over.
OK, merci beaucoup, Christophe. Bon, pour la première question, effectivement, ceux qui seront sélectionnés pour participer à la formation doivent être ensemble les 12 semaines. Donc, ça, c'est pas chacun de son côté. Bien sûr, il y a des tâches qui sont individuelles que tout le monde va compléter si ce n'est pas un travail de groupe. Mais les travaux de groupe ou bien les ateliers qui sont facilités par les animateurs, nécessairement, il faut que tous les participants soient présents. Mais par contre, toutes les tâches qui sont en ligne, genre, par exemple, regarder une vidéo ou consulter un document, là, bon, individuellement, chaque participant va aller compléter, consulter la plateforme quand il veut. Donc, on n'a pas nécessairement besoin d'être au même moment. Bon, maintenant, par rapport aux défis liés au temps, effectivement, ça, on est conscient de ça. C'est juste que si on veut maintenir les mêmes objectifs d'apprentissage, donc il faut nécessairement couvrir toutes les sessions comme si on était en face à face. Donc, on imagine bien que 19 sessions de 1h30 chacune. Donc, si on va les délivrer en ligne, donc ça va nécessiter énormément de temps. Mais conscient aussi de cela, ce n'est pas quelque chose qui est caché. Donc maintenant, dans la sélection et dans l'engagement même des participants, donc nous essaierons de bien mentionner cet aspect-là et qu'on demande aux managers des participants à dégager assez de place pour ça. Donc on comprend que c'est trop long et on ne peut pas aussi non plus comprimer. En tout cas, pour l'instant, on n'a pas trouvé la formule, parce qu'à moins que, plutôt que ça soit 3 heures par semaine, puisque l'idée ici, c'est de leur donner aussi de l'espace pour continuer à travailler. Donc, c'est juste 3 heures par semaine. Ce n'est pas tous les jours de la semaine que ça leur prend. C'est un effort, 3 heures par semaine, donc il faut une autre semaine. Et il y a de la flexibilité au cas où il n'y a pas des ateliers. Et donc, ils sont flexibles d'aller compléter les tâches en ligne quand ils veulent. Donc, il n'y a pas, en réalité, ce n'est pas toutes les semaines, tous les jours qui sont occupés, mais c'est seulement les heures d'atelier et de travaux de groupe qui doivent nécessairement regrouper les participants. Donc, comme je l'avais dit, c'est toujours la phase pilote. Après la version anglaise, on verra avec la version française les différents retours que nous aurons. On va tirer les leçons et voir éventuellement si c'est possible de raccourcir ou pas. Donc, voilà ce que je vais dire. Je ne sais pas si c'est bon. D'autres questions? OK, merci Jennifer. Bien. Donc, s'il n'y a pas d'autres questions, donc je pense qu'on peut se dire au revoir à partir de maintenant.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, oui.
Oui, visa projet filets sociaux Burkina Faso.
OK.
Je voudrais juste avoir une idée sur la sélection des candidats.
OK. Bon, la sélection, c'est comme pour toute autre formation, on va publier par les canaux habituels. Donc, ceux qui sont intéressés vont s'inscrire et on va sélectionner les participants. Donc, si on s'en tient au calendrier présent, la sélection se fera, le lancement et la sélection se feront au mois de mai prochain. Donc, on verra, et comme je l'avais dit, on va tenir compte de la région, des pays, etc., pour qu'on ait des participants qui sont dans le même contexte, dans le même fuseau horaire, plus ou moins pour justement éviter ces difficultés-là de travailler en groupe. Bon, entre autres, bien sûr. D'autres questions?
Super, compris. Merci bien.
OK, merci beaucoup. Bien, donc je tiens encore une fois à vous remercier pour votre participation à cette première réunion de 2021 du CACHOL.
Peut-être, Abdoulaye, juste en divers, juste une communication, si possible.
Oui.
Non, peut-être juste profiter de l'occasion pour informer tous les participants qu'il y a eu récemment un atelier de bilan sur les transferts monétaires réalisés en 2020 au Burkina Faso. Et l'idée, c'était de refaire un petit rappel théorique un petit peu voilà, sur le MIB, le multipurpose cash. Il y a eu justement ce rappel reminder sur la matrice de l'intercluster et le challenge à suivre ça de suivre les modalités par les clusters. Et ensuite, on avait essayé aussi que chaque secteur puisse un peu dire comment il avait pu utiliser les transferts monétaires dans son secteur. Donc, c'est simplement pour dire que le rapport est disponible pour ceux que ça intéresse, avec les présentations également. Donc, voilà, ça peut peut-être donner des idées à d'autres pays en termes de contenu ou en termes d'utilisation des transferts monétaires pour certains secteurs qui ont des difficultés à utiliser ces modalités. Voilà, merci.
Merci beaucoup, Christophe. Et encore une fois, merci beaucoup à tous. Donc, on se donne rendez-vous à la prochaine réunion. Donc, vous aurez les informations sur les invitations, sur les canaux habituels. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir. À bientôt.
Merci.
Merci.
Merci, au revoir.
Au revoir, merci.
Au revoir.